Krishna, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay. We're beginning the 20th chapter of the third canto. We have just seen Hiranyaksha slain by Varahadev. I hope also our anarthas have been slain as we have been meditating on this beautiful pastime. Would you like to start reading, Gokulila? If you like.
Yes, sure. Vidura again asks about the process of creation. Maitreya briefly summarizes his earlier account of the primary creation enacted by Lord Vishnu, then describes the secondary creation of Brahma. The sages roared their approval, jumping to their feet. Some called out, "Victory to Varaha!" Others praised Sutta. Many called out, "Please speak more." Sutta joined his palms and bowed his head. Shaunaka prompted him, pray tell us what Swayambhuva Manu did after establishing his residence on earth. What arrangements did he make for saving the conditioned souls? A voice rang out from the assembly. Please tell us more about Krishna's friend Vidura. We heard how he left Hastinapura when the Kauravas ignored Krishna's counsel to make peace with the Pandavas. What did he do after that? Others objected. Surely Sutta should answer Shaunaka's question, for he is our spokesman. Sutta looked at Shaunaka, unsure how to proceed. An elderly sage stood up. It is certainly worth hearing more about Vidura. After all, even though a maidservant's son, his seminal father is Vyasadeva, an incarnation of Narayan, and Vidura was equal to his great father. He wholeheartedly worshipped Krishna and was attached to his devotees. After his long pilgrimage, he was purified of all passion. Meeting the great sage Maitreya at Hardwar, he asked him many questions. Pray tell us more about that conversation. After hearing the elderly mystic's request, Shaunaka decided to let Sutta choose the topic. Vidura and Maitreya must have spoken about many of Krishna's spotless pastimes. Hearing about Krishna is exactly like bathing in the Ganges. It frees one from all sinful reactions. All good fortune to you, Sutta Goswami. Please relate to us any of Krishna's pastimes which are all auspicious and worth glorifying. Devotees are never satiated hearing about him. Sutta, who was absorbed in remembrance of Krishna, said, Please listen as I recount what occurred next with Maitreya and Vidura. Vidura leaned against the parijata tree, whose small night-blooming white and orange flowers emitted a spicy fragrance, which mixed with the wafting aroma of white moon flowers and water lilies. He sighed. How wonderfully the Lord had rescued the earth from the ocean bottom while indifferently killing Hiranyaksha. It was such a great blessing to be able to hear such delightful accounts of Maitreya. He inquired further from the sage. Holy sage, since you know matters inconceivable to us, please tell us what Brahma created after the Prajapatis. Also, how did the Prajapatis, headed by Marichi and Swayambhuva Manu, assist Brahma to create? Did they act independently, or were their wives, or with their wives' helps, or was it both? Maitreya had been describing the creation process before he digressed to the history of Jai and Vijay. He said he would first summarize the topics already covered. I previously described how the three modes of nature were in a state of equilibrium known as the pradhan. Mahavishnu injected time and the living beings along with their karmic destinies into the pradhan by his glance, thus producing the Mahat Tattva, or the total material elements. Vidura nodded, remembering Maitreya explaining how the material cosmos was created to fulfill the conditioned soul's illicit desire for independent enjoyment. Forgetting their duty to serve Krishna, some living beings want to exploit his energies. Thus, the Lord manifests the material nature, expanding as Mahavishnu, Garbhodakshay Vishnu, and Kasharadakshay Vishnu, to enable the creation and to accompany the conditioned souls. Maitreya said, I also described that the Mahat Tattva in which the mode of passion predominates was further acted by the conditioned soul's destinies to produce three kinds of false ego. False ego evolved into various groups of 5 principles. Should I carry on reading?
Yeah, please.
Vidura remembered 4 groups of 5, the 5 elements, earth, water, fire, air, and ether, the 5 tan mantras, sound, touch, form, taste, and smell, the 5 knowledge acquiring senses, eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and skin, the 5 working senses, speech, hands, feet, anus, and genitals. Maitreya reminded Vidura that the gods presiding over these groups were unable to combine them without Vishnu's help. Yes, I remember the gods prayed to the Lord to help them, replied Vidura. Maitreya said, with Vishnu's help, the presiding gods combined the groups of 5 to produce a shining golden egg. For 1,000 years, the shining egg lay on the causal ocean in a lifeless state. Then the Lord entered it as Garbhodakshay Vishnu. I also explained that from Vishnu's navel an effulgent lotus flower sprouted. It blazed like 1,000 suns. This lotus is the reservoir of all conditioned souls. From it emerged the first living entity, the omnipotent Brahma. Vidura added, the golden lotus is called Hiranyangarbha. Maitreya continued, inspired by Lord Vishnu, Brahma created the universe as it was before. I described how Brahma first created from his own shadow 5 layers of ignorance from which to cover the conditioned souls. These are Tamishra, Andha Tamishra, Tamas Moha, and Maha Moha. Please speak more about these 5 coverings, said Vidura.
Okay, we can pause there. I'm sure you must have studied this, in the Bhagavatam itself. But these topics, recently, there was a Bhagavatam class in Mayapur, and Mataji was giving a class about the creation, and then she was saying, either in among devotees, either devotees really like this topic, or they just dislike this topic. There's nothing in between. So the topic of creation is either like, for this Mataji, she finds this topic like really interesting. And most devotees like, I don't really like all this. Let's talk about the pastimes of the Lord. I'm like neutral actually. So different devotees have different interests, right? But here we can actually see that Vidura is very interested in these topics, like really interested. He wants to understand every single detail of how the Lord creates, what happens, what are the dynamics, and so on. Any comments or questions so far?
Yeah, when I was reading it, I was noticing my mind starting to lose interest because it was getting quite technical.
Right. Yeah, you probably belong in the category of devotees who just like, come on, let's finish this. I want to listen to the pastimes of the Lord.
Yeah,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
it's okay. It's okay. But to understand a little bit of basics is helpful. I can continue reading. Maitreya said that they are described in the Vishnu Purana. The first, Tamishra, is anger born of envy. The pure soul is Krishna's servant. Covered by Tamishra, he resents his servitude and desires to enjoy independently like Krishna. It is due to Tamishra that many yogis aspire to become one with the Supreme. The covering, known as Amrita Tamishra, makes one think death is the ultimate end. Due to this misconception, people commit numerous sins to increase their immediate enjoyment, unmindful that they will have to reap the consequences in future lives. Andha Tamishra is due to tamas, which makes the living entity forget their spiritual identities. The whole material universe is also called tamas because most of its inhabitants are ignorant of their identity as a spirit soul and identify with their material bodies. Such misguided living entities are overcome by moha, attachment to wealth, sex, family members, and their birth country. As moha increases, it becomes maha moha, greed to accumulate more. Thus, they fight one another. We'll pause there. This is so true. Um, I was just hearing about relatives fighting for which brother gets the mother's gold. And some several years ago, in my own family, the great grandmother was, yeah, she was my great grandmother. She was like almost like about to die, and she hadn't left any will. And so the brothers, my grandfather had traveled away. So then he was the oldest. And naturally, everybody gets equal share, all the sons. But the younger brothers, they went and they made a special will. And then they just took the hand of the mother and they just took her fingerprints before she died to cut off my grandfather from the will, to not give him anything. And the brothers wanted to share the property only among themselves. I mean, I cannot forget this because I saw my grandfather struggle so much, even to do the basic things like get the daughter married or etc., because he got cheated out of his rights by his own brothers. And the interesting thing is that this is typical of Mahamoha, because these brothers would obviously get the share equally, right? Fair share. But no, they got the maha moha, the greed to increase, and they wanted more. It's not enough. I want more. And then actually I could see the consequences, like their kids, their children, they didn't really live like that. Those people themselves, the brothers themselves who did that, they had like painful deaths, and one went mad, and the other suffered so many surgeries and this and that. My grandfather left so peacefully. Like one day he had finished his 16 rounds and he hung his japa back to the window, and through the window he looked at the temple tower, and he had a massive heart attack. And he just called out Narayana, and then he just held his chest and he just left. So there's a proverb in Telugu, Manchi Valluku Maraname Sakshi. It means that a pious person's death is the proof of his piety. So I could actually see through my own eyes how this unfolded. We cannot just try to enjoy, and greed can only ruin us. And it's a rule. It's a human tendency to want more, but then if we don't control it, it ruins us. And I was also thinking, like, there was another analogy, another story I heard. A jeweler, like what do you call it? Yeah, jeweler, right? A gold jewelry making shop had two daughters, and both the daughters would fight with each other like anything, pulling their hair, etc., to be the one to clean the house, to sweep the floor. And I was like, okay, that's unheard of. Usually they want to throw off the task to the other, right? Like, why do they fight to want to do it? Because when they would sweep the floor, they would get some particles of gold, because it was a gold shop, right? So they were eagerly like waiting to sweep the floor because they wanted to collect some pieces of gold that fell, some even dust particles of gold they would collect, so that could actually give them the money. So like this, there is so much, and people nowadays fighting for land, like especially among brothers itself. There's so much kill. They want to go kill the other brother, kill the other person who shares the other part, like that. There's so much just for a little piece of land. They are ready to like just cut the throat of each other. Even in Mayapur, there was one sannyasi, actually he was sannyasi, and then anyways, name Sadhu Prabhu, something like this. He actually got attacked by some people, like devotees, like attacked him because of some land dealings, and they just went to his house, and they wanted to kill him, and so they just went with a knife. And he's like a strong guy, so they just cut off his fingers and different things like that. But he survived actually, and he was in hospital for like a long time. And see the level, in Kali Yuga, it's such atrocity just for some little property. So like that, people can actually get involved in this mahamoha, and then they fight in one another like ruthlessly. My astrology teacher was telling us that some people come, and they are like there are some people who go to some um, black magicians like that, and they say, oh, I want to harm this particular person, I want to harm whatever this devotee or this person. And then they ask like, why? Oh, because he was laughing at me yesterday. And he was like, my astrology guru was like in shock, like, wow, these people can just be so petty, for such trivial things. They actually want to destroy another person, etc., etc. He doesn't do that kind of work, but he was saying how there is another person he knows who does it. And then he was saying people come with very, very petty reasons to, oh, I will pay a lot of money. Please do some black magic on this person, and I want this person to be destroyed. I want their happiness to be destroyed. I want their marriage life to be destroyed. Like that, they do this black magic. They bring stuff from the person, maybe the dust that they walked, or the hair, or clothes, or something, and they just determine for such silly small reasons. So this is like Mahamoha, mm, the illusion, but it's not just an ordinary illusion. It's like great illusion. I think that by harming somebody else, we can be happy or something like that. As it says here, such misguided living entities are overcome by moha. Moha basically is illusion. And so to identify, oh, this is my love, this is my family, but there is actually no guarantee that this will really make you feel like family. In Satya Yuga, the enemies were in different planets, different planetary systems, right? And then in Dwapara Yuga, in Treta Yuga, they were in different countries. And then in Dwapara Yuga, they were in different families. I mean, even in the same family in one sense, Duryodhana and Arjun, right? They were all Kurus anyway. So same family, even enemies. But in Kali Yuga, it's said that the enemy is within. How scary. So what does that mean? It means that in an attempt to find security and solace and peace and whatever we are looking for, we harm our own karma by, like I was saying, all these examples, people killing each other, people putting each other in prison. Oh yeah, that's another one. In Mayapur, I've seen cases where the wife's putting the husband in prison for different purposes, different reasons. In not even like, it's not even that they were abused or anything, just misusing law and then just putting the husbands, devotee husbands, brahmana husbands in prison. So much of this kind of stuff has been happening. Mm. As in even in my professional life, I see that people are so much in this moha. If I get this, I'll be happy. If I get that, I'll be happy. But happiness doesn't come from those things. Happiness comes from within. Happiness comes from making peace with our life and taking shelter of the holy name. And happiness comes from giving. Happiness comes from serving the Lord, serving the Lord's mission. And until we understand that, it's just such a struggle. You have anything, any other comments or realizations or stories to share?
It was really amazing what you said. I was also just thinking how, as devotees, we also struggle with these things, wealth, sex, family members, attachment to birth country.
Mm. But not to that extent.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because we have knowledge, right? We know that the skin disease, as yesterday we had a meeting and we were discussing how this skin disease or identifying ourselves in this skin is one of the huge diseases. Then we end up making so many mistakes because we're not this, right? We're not whatever it is, Americans, Indians, or we are not that. So I try to identify, and then that only causes us misery, a false sense of identification. So that's a misguided thing. But when we associate with devotees, we're seeing, like I said, like in my 40 years of life, I've seen so many examples of relatives, of friends, of family members, and everybody going through that. And then I see the result. How long can we hold on to property? How long can we hold on to relationships? It has to end. The tree has to fall, the tree has to die. So we cannot take shelter of these temporary securities, right? Okay, it's necessary to perform devotional service, some security, some peace of mind. Like Prabhupada said, marriage is not for happiness, it's for peace of mind. That's a good one also, because if we get married thinking I'll be happy, it's a mahamoha again. But if we know that, okay, marriage, it has its own difficulties and problems and ups and downs, but it's for my peace. Similarly, wealth also, money is so that we don't think about money. It's not that we become obsessed about money. It's like money is so that I don't worry about money and I continue my life, my devotional service, and that's what money is meant for. But if we lose that perspective, then we're in trouble. So even as devotees, we can face. I'm just thinking of some example here. I know some devotees that they get attached to service, right? Some service, maybe washing pots of Radha Madhava after Boga offering, or ironing clothes of Nrsingadev, or arranging flowers for the deities, Darshanarthi garlands and other things. Different services, right? Even there is subtle, invasion of this moha and moha. Sometimes we start identifying, this is my service, don't dare. This is mine. And then there is conflicts, there is politics, there's so much fights. One devotee doesn't like another devotee. Oh, how dare, how did you make that garland? That was mine, my service. Why did you do that? Or oh, don't bring another person to wash the pots, this is my service. So there is a lot of that. So it's not easy actually. Get rid of this moha. It's just a kind of illusion to think that me and mine, right? This is my wealth, this is my service. Subtle difference there, but it can still occupy our mind. In Kali Yuga, it's so difficult to get free from that. So we should be humble and vulnerable with some devotees to open up and share where we are, so that we find the cure for the mahamoha. Otherwise, even amongst devotees, there are different levels of devotees, right? In different levels of comforts, and some devotees don't want to sacrifice and do devotional service. If we associate with them long enough, we also will start thinking in that way. So association is very important. If we value utilizing our time wisely, we should be with people who utilize their time wisely. If like, I know a while ago, I had a kind of acquaintance that I used to hang out with. They were very much very kind of different kind of lifestyles, and it wasn't comfortable, but I saw myself trying to like fit in, and then I thought, oh, this is not for me. Like that, it took me a while to disconnect from it. So it's not that blindly we just associate with anybody who is devotee. We have to see like-mindedness, we have to see our goals, we have to see our intentions, and then choose wisely. Of course, let me say this because of experience. Association is not easy. It's not just given to us very quickly. Sometimes it's difficult. We have to pray and beg and wait and become deserving. It's not cheap. Good association is not cheap. We need to deserve it. I went through that, waiting for good sangha, like that. Yeah. Okay, so we can end here, fighting one another, and then we'll read more about different kinds of ignorance tomorrow. How do I mark this? Okay, we're here. Hi, Krishna Rasastali Mataji.
Hare Krishna, good morning. I was a
Good
little late.
morning. Yeah, I just finished reading, and we were
Yeah.
reading about, we restarted, like Maitreya and Vidura restarted their conversation about the creation and about
Yeah.
ignorance and all. We were, I don't know when you came in, but yeah.
Just about 7-8 minutes late I was. That's all. I've gone through, I've heard. Yeah.
No problem.
Yeah,
And
Mark
of course,
was
I encourage that we study the original verses and come back so that we can get more perspective, and we can continue tomorrow.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Gokul Lila.
Thank you, Krishna. Have a nice day.
You too. Oh,
Have a nice day.
wow. For Gokul Lila, it's like 11 a.m. in the morning. She's in New Zealand.